Hey, hello everyone.
Hello, Jivko. Hello, everybody.
Good to have you on this exciting event we are having today, and actually we are heading towards I think one of the most interesting panels today, and in the small ateliers, and we are about to discuss how COVID-19 reflected us all as employees and employers, or broadly spoken, how human capital got affected by the Corona times, and how human capital will develop beyond Corona times. Since we know that today there were a lot of talks about innovation, about further development, and since we know that behind every innovation, every great idea, there is a human mind. At the end, human capital is, or even better, a group of human minds. We know that human capital is extremely important, and basically exploring how the COVID crisis affected us, and also having in mind that this is not the first pandemic in the human history, and most probably won't be the last one. It's extremely important to draw conclusions and to learn lessons out of it. So today we have gathered an exciting panel, and I'll give you the word so that you can present yourself and also share your thoughts or presentations concerning topic, and then we'll open the floor for discussion. So I'll start with Ani Vladimirova. Please, the stage is yours.
About human capital in Corona times and beyond. As the title of our brief presentation suggests, we will provide a combined psychology and HR perspective on a new look into workplace generations and the distinct challenges and superpowers that they offer in current pandemic reality. As a note, the insights I will later share are based on developmental and social psychology observations in predominantly urban states. This is important. These are based on my applied psychology practice, as well as online consultation with more than 30,000 clients through our digital practice in e-therapy BG. And this is Marina Martin. She will present the human capital view, translating these insights into a practical frame of organizations.
And on this note, we would like to share a presentation, if that's possible.
Yes, sure. Our technical host will give you the right. You should see the share button right down on the screen lighting, then you will be able to share your screen.
Perfect. We have it now.
There you go.
Hopefully you can see it at this point. Can you see our screen?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. So as you know, the 2020 global pandemic seems to have hit the pause button on an age that has been coined the age of acceleration. And we're at the point in time that we're resetting what we believe and what we do in the human capital context. We live in a time of transition, And if we were asking up until very recently, what do we do next? And now in 2020, in the COVID-19 reality, we ask, what do we do now? And our question to you as an audience and panelists is, are you ready? And we've observed 3 stages up until this moment. First, we had to urgently respond to the new situation, leveraging whatever resources that we've had on the go. Then we stepped into a phase of returning slowly to our workplaces, into life as a new normal. And before us now, there is a new era unfolding in which we can reinvent the way we work, the way we operate, the way that we relate to each other. We are redefining what human life is, but also our space, shared spaces, the applications of technology, and also the dimension of time. And as many of you are probably aware, there is a wave of new reports, research, news that are constantly streamed about the rapid organizational change happening at the moment, as well as the exciting biotech developments that we've been also looking at throughout the conference today and we'll dive into tomorrow. As you can see, some of the big names in consulting, such as BCG, McKinsey, Deloitte Human Capital, are already sharing their recommendations about the future of work in the new context. And what is really important for all of us to note is that people still are very much at the heart of the developments and the innovation that are happening right now and are what we will need to step boldly into the future of tomorrow. And currently, we're presented with a series of opportunities and challenges in managing human resources. An angle that we're going to tackle today is that added complexity of a workplace that is shared by 3 or sometimes more generations at the same time. In managing such a multi-generational workforce, there are several gaps that Deloitte Human Capital has helped identify in their recent 2020 survey. One big important gap is that 70% of organizations have shared that leading a multi-generations workforce is important or very important for them in the next 12 to 18 months. However, only 10% say that they are very ready to address this trend. So this is a tremendous gap there in how do we prepare and how do we manage this space. The second one is that there's highlights that new technologies and techniques for analyzing the workforce data will be needed to understand the distinct employee needs. Simply segmenting staff by their age and demographics is not enough. No longer. What we need to do is add insight into employee values, expectations, beliefs, needs, to have a more holistic view of an employee archetype. And lastly, up until recently, a generational view has been applied in several areas of human capital management and HR, mainly in talent acquisition, career development, leadership development, and learning. There are some spaces, for example, well-being, performance management, benefits and compensation, where a more individual view has been taken. All of them present areas where an application of a more complex generational view could be useful. And thus tonight, what we would like to do is present a case for using psychographic segmentations in managing human capital in organizations. Segmentation is a practice that has been used by marketers for many years. It is a practice of grouping sets of individuals based on similar distinct needs and characteristics. Those typically include current customers or potential customers, And now this is a trend that I'm excited to observe entering more and more into the field of HR as we study employee experiences and seek to influence them. A wonderful technique that is used in conjunction is the creation of personas. They're based on psychographic and generalized studies and personified as representations of group of consumers, or in our case, of staff that is surveyed. Personas present archetypes and add emotional and behavioral, a human element to the statistic, and they are extremely powerful in helping us target communication using precisely the messages and the calls of action that will resonate with a particular group. And we will present to you a sample. This is a pandemic psychographic personas segmentation that we have prepared for you tonight. There's three main dimensions that it looks into, mainly time, space, and technology. And we look at not only generations from a demographic age perspective and different age groups, but we also combine that with their family status, types of roles, and added observations on their needs, expectations, experiences, values, challenges. So that this is what Annie will present to you next. We call it a simple and yet sophisticated view of the different generations.
With a clear awareness of the limitations of the definition of this term generation, I will talk about the different age response to Corona crisis. First, let's talk about 20, 30 years old, 20 plus, and I hope you agree that this generation is technology generation, because they long lived in a virtual world, and so even in Corona times, they were constantly connected with their peers. This generation is still curious about the world and much more than scared of the virus. So they want what they like. And that's why this generation is seeking ways to shape reality according to their needs. Their response to COVID situation is that they keep changing employers, places of residence, education partners, but at the same time they create startups, and it's because for the generation, this generation, the isolation and the virus are seen as a block which challenges their creativity. And feeling at home with technologies, they are able to do business with just a vision or a simple idea. So, talking about their superpower, they even managed to earn money from COVID-19. The second generation is 30, 40 years old. This generation is trying to juggle the greatest number of priorities. It's typical for them the late identity development, and the majority of 30, 40 years old are still searching for their career directions, and they are not even ready for having children. And in the same time, they're seeking the fast track to success and financial gains. Unfortunately, their response is they're the most affected in these times. In the context of Corona crisis, we observed an existential crisis of this generation, probably because of the needs to rapid decisions or more efforts to maintain their status quo, but they are so affected. The most common stress responses are panic attacks, hypochondriacs, generalized anxiety, but their learning abilities and participating in hobbies and sport activities are the basis of their superpowers because they have the largest resource to adapt and to upgrade their personalities. And the not last, but the second part of the workforce are 40, 60 years old. And this generation is with the most established lifestyles and careers. In our country, they adopt the mindset that there is no time left for new beginnings or for development. So in the context of the corona crisis, this group shows a sense of hopelessness and acute fears. Here we observed catastrophic thinking, depressive episodes, exhaustion, but their contact with their peers and friends from their youth, with families, helps them to be calmer, and social planning give them sense of purpose. So the superpower of this generation are the stable beliefs and the experience in previous crises.
Thank you, Annie. And using those insights, we have created several what we call the powerful pandemic generation personas. As you can see on the top there, we have the curious explorers, who are a force for future developments. We also have the active multi-managers that are stable core of organizational structures, and the legendary advisors who are at the roots of traditions and provide meaning for future growth. So this was just a sample of how psychological insights can be combined in order to create workable personas and organizational management perspective. Another slice, so to say, is looking at corona crisis challenging roles. And there's a similar exercise that we can do for workers in the front lines, such as the healthcare heroes or essential super service, as we call them. Those are individuals working with the public directly despite the risk of the pandemic, but also a significant group of home office heroes, as we call them, who are working remotely from home and logging in. And our conference today is a great example of how virtually connected we are these days. As a core strength for these groups is that healthcare heroes can learn how to leverage their unique neurophysiology.
Yes, because when you work at the front line, you can't use your experience all the time because everything comes too fast. And the basic in your personality is your neuropsychology, neurophysiology. And if we talk about electric network, it's the same. You have to know how reacts your personality in these cases.
Similarly, essential service workers can learn to manage their own resources and risks to maximize their well-being and effectiveness. And when we look at workers at home, from home office, for them it's really key to find a productive family, work, responsibilities, and their well-being.
Yes, here the work is based on their behavior and their habits and their new possibility to manage all these new conditions around them.
And like we mentioned already, in time, certainly individuals face distinct challenges, but as you can see, each generation, each group, each individual has their superpowers that they could put into their work.
And it's important to combine all that we know about the different generation to create good teams and to live in harmony in organizations.
And therefore, we have an invitation to all of you. Let's leverage science and technology together to create authentic human connections.
Because in our work with organizational clients, we leverage temperament types and personalized strategies to manage the strengths and weaknesses of individuals.
As well as teams. We base it all on neuropsychology, and that helps to facilitate time management, to balance relationship among the generations, to explore leading values, and ultimately, we support our clients to face these challenges by unleashing the distinct superpowers. And with that, we wrap it up and hand it over to our colleagues at the panel.
And thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Wow, ladies, that was really insightful. Thank you very much. A great presentation. And I'm sure we'll have a great discussion around it. And now I'm heading the word to Miss Elena Kyria. The stage is yours.
I just need to be able to share my screen, I think.
Yes, sure. Our technical team will support you in that. You should see the sharing button active right below on your screen.
Elena, do you hear me?
Yep, I will mute you in 1 second.
Do you need any help, Elena? That seems good.
I think we're there. So,
yes, the floor is yours. Thank you.
okay, so today I'm taking a slightly different spin on the impact of COVID on human capital and talking more from an employee perspective. And for those of you that are kind of listening to this talk today, I'd love for you to maybe interact in the discussion box and let us know what you think a professional brand is, and we can revisit that later. Because the first thing I wanted to highlight is that the first kind of 12 seconds into this presentation was a little bit of a test. I know that my camera's not on, I'll turn it on in a minute, but just by listening to my voice, you've all made a series of decisions about me. You've made a decision whether you like me, whether by the tone of my voice I am trustworthy. You maybe are trying to decide how old I am. And psychology shows that it only takes 12 seconds for somebody to make a decision of you when you have the first interaction with them. However, the impact of coronavirus has meant that everybody has now gone virtual. And the first impression that people get of you as a professional nowadays is not necessarily the first interaction that they have. So it's not necessarily the first time they meet you. Nowadays, people are making decisions on professionals based on what they find out about them online. So first impressions matter, but the first impression doesn't come from the first interaction. So I'm here now, and I'll just turn my camera on so you can also hopefully see who I am. And as I mentioned earlier, you've all made already some decisions about me. So my question to you is, before you are interacting with people as professionals, what are professionals thinking about you? What impression do they have? What message are you putting out there as a professional, and equally as a company? So in the same way that professionals are now online and professional branding is so much more important, as a company, the world has changed. So it's not about, you know, companies spouting messages in magazines and advertising in newspapers anymore. People are going online, and by being able to go online, they are much more able to get referrals and feedback and information about what companies are doing out there. So branding is super important, and COVID and the impact of COVID making everything go online has accelerated this whole phenomenon. So I don't know if anyone's managing the discussion box there, or if anybody has actually put anything in there, team. But if not, I'll go straight to my definition of what a professional brand is.
No, actually, not any definition. So please go ahead.
Okay, so a professional brand for me is a reputation that precedes, surrounds and follows you in your professional life. The idea is that it's all around you, okay? And for those of you that might be sitting there thinking, you know, it doesn't really matter to me because I'm not online or I don't use LinkedIn that much. The one thing that I can say is every single person has a professional brand, whether you like it or not. The main difference is, are you going out there and owning your professional brand, or are people defining what your brand is for you? We have seen that, you know, there are certain functions out there where people will typically say, okay, you know, based on my interactions with, for example, regulatory people, they are typically, you know, the blockers. So are you letting people define what your role is and what your brand is? Or are you the regulatory person that is facilitating and the partner to the business? That is the difference between owning your professional brand and letting other people define it for you. I want to talk about the power of a successful brand, and in order to do that, I take the example of Victoria Beckham. So if you don't know her, she was one of the Spice Girls. So I'm giving away my age by letting you know that, because I was a big fan when I was a kid. She's from the UK, but now she's famous for being a fashion designer. She has her own fashion brand, and everybody knows her, and her whole brand, you know, that she's built up has been for, you know, high fashion and designing, you know, unique, good quality pieces of clothing. So the difference between having a strong professional brand and not is the following. Victoria Beckham goes out into the street with a bag over her head and everybody claps and says, that's incredible, what a statement. She goes viral on Twitter, she uploads it on Instagram and gets, you know, 500,000 likes, and everybody says what an amazing thing that she's done, that's super different and unique, and everybody sees that as, you know, a statement fashion piece. You, on the other hand, go out into the street and do exactly the same thing with no professional brand, and everybody just thinks it's a little bit weird. That's the power of having a strong professional brand. Do you own your professional brand, or do other people define it for you? Now, there's one thing that I really want to highlight here when it comes to the importance of brand. And this is the same for you as a professional, but equally for any company owners out there is exactly the same, because perception is the key to everything nowadays, especially in a virtual world. How you're perceived is how you succeed. And I'm going to explain how. Brand gives you credibility. Credibility gives you trust. And the more trust you have, the more influence you have, and the more, you know, people take notice of what you say. And by having more influence, you can then have a greater impact in your role and what you're doing. And by having a bigger impact, you're able to generate more results. And by having more results, that generates more opportunities for you. So it's really important that as professionals, you are considering, now in a COVID world where everything has gone online and everything is virtual, how are you being perceived? And are you taking ownership, and are you directing that in the way that you want, or are other people defining it for you, and therefore you're letting it happen to you instead of driving that change? So there are 3 golden rules, but unfortunately today we don't have time to go into all 3 of them. but I'm going to talk about the most important one. So for those of you who are thinking about professional brand, where to start? The first thing I like to say is think about it as a multi-sensory experience. A professional brand is not just what is written online. It's everything. Remember, it's everything that precedes and surrounds you. So just actually take some time to think. Me in my role as human resources professional, you know, what do I want people to think about me? You know, when they first see my job title or when they first see my LinkedIn profile, what is the first thing I want them to think? So you really need to define that, put some descriptive words with it. The second thing is the purpose. So, you know, why do you do what you do? What is the driving force behind that? Because we all know, if anybody listens to Simon Sinek, everything starts with why. The other thing is the reputation. So what do you want people to be saying about you when you're not in the room? Jeff Bezos from Amazon talks about brands being, what are people saying about you when you're not in the room? So actually spend some time thinking about, what do you want to be associated with? Are you the fun person? Are you the problem solver? Are you the detail orientated person? You know, are you the life and soul of the department? Actually define what you want that to be, so you can actually start to come up with a brand definition of who you are as a professional. Of course, like anything, a professional brand comes with a look. So pay attention, because now everything is online and virtual. Pay attention to what do things look like in the background, because I'm sure, you know, that is defining also what your brand is. If you're highly professional and you've defined your brand as articulate, intelligent, you know, being, you know, the problem solver, but then, you know, your home background is just, you know, a total mess, that doesn't reflect the brand that you're putting out. So it's really important that you are conscious about all the different elements. And the final one is the voice. So by voice, I don't necessarily mean how you speak. Voice, I'm talking about now more in a written format. So everybody knows about LinkedIn. And so now, if you're using LinkedIn, decide, how are you going to use LinkedIn? What is your voice going to be? Are you going to be sharing interesting information? Are you going to be criticizing and giving your thoughts, articulating your thoughts on specific articles? Are you the person who's going to create videos and upload them? And define what is the message that you want to be putting out with your virtual voice. And I just want to wrap up by saying, you know, it's really important to just take a moment and reflect on professional branding, because as everything now goes online, perceptions matter. And we, as Tom Peters says, we are CEOs of our own companies. Every individual is a CEO of their own company, and that company is called me.inc. So take action today. My question to you is, what are you going to commit to do? Are you going to update your LinkedIn profile? Maybe you're going to change your profile picture. Maybe you are going to post something today about what you've learned. Maybe you're going to start to think about the way you're perceived, or maybe you're going to do a whole definition of what your professional brand is. But my advice and suggestion to you, and I challenge you all to today, take action and write something down in terms of what you're going to do before this day is up, and take action and take control of your professional brand. Thank you.
Elena, thank you very much for the powerful presentation. It was really very interesting. Now I'll take the chance to give the floor to Mr. Plamen Peev.
Thank you, Jivko. Virginia, if you want, you can go first.
I can go first if ladies first is the rule. However,
Sure.
However, Jivko is the moderator, and he decides. I guess he knows the most about us, and he can put us in the correct order. So, what is your judgment on that?
Let's be gentlemen, Jivko.
Okay, sure. So it's then Gina, I'm really pleased to give you the floor first, and Plamen, thank you for being gentlemen.
Okay, so thank you again. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for organizing this interesting and very forward-looking event. I am mostly excited because I see the desire and the intention of exchanging experiences and exchanging ideas, which is crucial, especially in this time. As I don't have a presentation ready. So let me first share with you how I approached this event and this invitation. Since I'm on the other side of the ocean and I know that scale-wise things are different and the way the impact of the pandemic is also different, I did not rush into prepare something in black and white. I just wanted overall to express to you the concerns and the challenges. There might not be the same as the challenges that you face in Europe and especially in Bulgaria. The reason for that, it goes into so many factors and directions. But the first is that unfortunately for New York, I can speak, we haven't fully reopened. We haven't came back to normal at all. So what's happened to us in March and then in April, in May, it's like a snowball left a lot of people without childcare, without healthcare, without jobs. So we're still in the millions of people who lost their jobs. And even though in August and September, there were certain, according to the Department of Labor, there's some job openings. The bottom line is that there, for example, for leisure and hospitality industry, still 4.2 million people are without a job. And that does not include restaurants and outings. Let's not mention, so if we look the two big industries that are supporting every society and are supposed to be a service, we're talking about education and healthcare, right? And of course, all government. All of those lost in the millions of their human resources. So we hear the scale of the impact still puts us into very critical situation. What I see happening, and this is according to the Society of Human Resources Management, the SHRM, it's a very good resource and organization, non-for-profit, that it's constantly contracting companies that are doing surveys and other data collection experiments. And what they did is that July survey for 283 large companies that total of 4.4 million responses. So here is another scale difference, that when we talk about the United States and New York, we can roughly separate companies that need and rely on the human resources into three major groups. So the first one, it's 500 plus. So mentioning the survey that's done to 283 companies, having 4.4 million responses means that those companies have average of 15,000 people working for them. So now the second category is 50 to 500. Those companies, and I'm saying that it's important because they follow different rules and regulations. Different laws apply for the human resources and especially for the rules that the employer has to follow. If you are running and working in a 50 to 500, 500 and above. So in that sense, I don't know what it's more interesting for you, and because you are working with companies 500 and plus, However, the biggest impact, I have to say, on COVID is people losing their jobs and losing their security in companies that are 0 to 500. The small businesses, it's 0 to 50. So those are the three categories: 0 to 50 employees, 50 to 500, and 500 and above. So what is the impact in each one of those? It is, a topic that I cannot start, but I want to mention a couple of dimensions for each. So the big corporations, they were more prepared to transition their employees to a virtual work environment. Of course, as the pandemic still has an impact on the everyday tasks and everyday operations in New York specifically, the next is the big communication and the resources needed to align three major departments in each company: legal, IT, human resources, and executives. So the three of those are kind of working together to align what is needed on a case-to-case basis. So in one company, imagine you have to customize your approach as an employer to a family of 5 than to a family of 2 or 1. Well, and for example, I had to evaluate the needs and what adjustment has to be done in benefits for an employee that has 4 children, that lives in a state with schools being closed. What are her needs in order to be efficient and continue to perform her tasks? And a family of 2, a husband and wife, that the fact that the school system it's still closed does not affect at all. So those type of diversity in needs in different employees under the same employer, it's an extremely challenging area. Now, of course, already they were on a law level executive orders that at least try to cover for people affected by the COVID. They got sick or the loved one got sick. So under the Big Family Act that was implemented 5 years ago and allows an employee on a federal level to have 12 weeks family leave, for whatever reason, it has to be paid. And that includes also pregnancy. So you have only 12 weeks to deal with any issues in your life. So under that federal law, they now added a new one that allows you 2 weeks. In other words, 80 paid hours. Now, how this information gets to the employee, that is questionable. Because I personally interviewed several employees in a mid-sized companies, 50 to 500, and they're not aware of that option. So and this is, a very, very important, because the context of which people are working here and in Europe and in Bulgaria, it's slightly different. The benefits are slightly different. The expenses for healthcare and biotechnology is different. So if I have to go further into that, since it's of interest of the panel, I have to just list to you what are the benefits considered while this negotiation on a case-to-case level happens? So let's say I work in a company and I don't have anyone to take care of my children while I have meeting after meeting. And the school system, 1.7 million children are staying home in New York State. It's a completely different hurdle what happened with the Department of Education. But anyway, also how companies are handling their employees differ per industry. the industry, it's very different here, because we have certain industry that the age of the working employee, it's much higher. So the adjustment that employee needs to do are much harder. The challenges are in so many areas when you think that the businesses haven't reopened and the school system haven't reopened, and most importantly, the private offices and doctor and small medical practices haven't really opened. So we each created a completely new healthcare situation. Why? Because I have so many things to share. Just I don't want to go over the time. But just to mention the benefits that are considered during negotiation between employee and employer. The first thing is the health and the welfare plan. And what would be interesting for you here is that there is no per se unified healthcare system. We have different companies here. Every company negotiates different contracts with the employers groups. We have different clearing houses for adjudicate claims. So we have approximately 100 insurance companies that are offering 100 different insurance plans for different employers group. So the Healthcare Act that Obama signed, it's very interesting. It was developed for 20 years and nobody ever read it because of it's huge file that probably is not even scanned yet. In the 80s and the 90s, what that made is so many employers, 500 to 50, and let's not talk about the 50 to 0, are not offering insurance for their employees. So when you go into a contract to work, your health and welfare plans are very important. There are also a lot of divisions, but the Obama Act requires every employer to provide coverage for essential needs. That these essential needs, in some cases, so the essential needs are medical, hospital, mental health, prescription, radiology, and dental, and eyes. I don't think it's mandatory. So there are those essential benefits that an employer has to offer to their employees. And here is where the insurance companies come and subcontract in order to provide this. Why? Because the mental health, for example, was not an essential benefit for years. And people had to pay out of pocket to go and do their treatment. So that's why we have a lot of, employees that are patients at this point. So what happened is that most of the companies during COVID right away hired a psychologist to help with any arising mental health and any psychological and emotional issues. So this is an on-call consultant. Now, based on the payout for those services, the employers can hire a really good professional or a mid-level professional. So there's many layers into that, but the health and so when an employee cannot work anymore for whatever reason, what happens with them? They were furloughed, which means that they were released from duties, or they were laid off. So that's why we have in the millions our unemployment rate. Now, when things are reopening, the big questions are how people will be brought back, and with what benefits, because their needs might have changed. You know, there's employers that send dinners to their families. There's employers that will pay your grandparents or a friend to watch your children. There are benefits like that on a case-to-case basis, as long as the employee really states clearly, I can continue to perform my duties, but I need someone to come and build the wall. I need a faster computer, and I need someone to watch my 2-year-old, correct? So can every employer meet all of those needs? So now they started shifting. The next is the 401k plan. This is a mutual investment between employer and employee. So now they started, the employer is investing much less money for the employees that they are helping otherwise. So these readjustments, balancing of where the shared expenses between employer and employer going and how are they meeting specific needs is extremely complex. There's also pension plans that some pension plans can be terminated and stopped just because the company decides that there's not enough fund to support them at this point, and other benefits can be taken away, like future vacations and future holidays. So I don't want to take more time. It is, again, I appreciate opening up, and I would love to share more based on what is of interest to you and how the mental health is handled, or how the negotiations between, and of course, what scale we're talking about.
Thank you, Gina. It's really interesting and quite different how basically things are managed in Europe in that respect, and how things are managed in the States. It's really huge difference. And yeah, it's a question that we might discuss a little bit later after we give the floor to Mr. Peev, but basically it's a question that obviously the states are moving much faster when laying off, and than Europe. So here is a much harder process, and the employees have much more security. But on the other hand, isn't it beneficial when companies start to recover to have been able to save more cash flow before laying off people? So it's really a very tricky balance, and my feeling is that currently both the States and the Europe are staying on the both sides of the balancing, and neither of those is optimal. But yeah, so thank you for the intro, and I'm going to Plamen Peev now, who was gentleman enough to give you his turn. And yeah, Plamen, I would be happy to hear your thoughts about human capital in Corona times and beyond.
Sure, but I think you need to first move me up to the panelist section, because I'm.
Yes.
Mr. Peev, I'm afraid you probably entered through the browser, because I'm not able to make you a panelist actually. Do you think you could go this way without?
Yeah, I did that.
You send them over. I'll happily change them, but I don't think I have them.
Oh. So I need to go back, or what?
Let's just, if it's fine with you, let's just probably go without the slide.
Can I share my screen, or?
I'm afraid not. The way you have entered, I guess you're from the browser, because I'm not able to promote you to a panelist.
All right then. I see switch to desktop app, but I'm not sure if this is working actually.
Yep.
Yeah, if you can just try, I think there is a button, and if it doesn't work, let's carry on. So that.
Yeah, I see. Maybe I should add it like an extension, or what?
Let's probably go this way if it's fine with you. Since
Yeah.
it's last panel.
Yeah, let me just check.
All the ladies.
How about now?
Let me try. No, sorry, still the same.
All right, I'll just rejoin then, if that's fine.
Yeah, good. Then we can discuss a bit then until you rejoin. Yeah, you see, obviously, technical challenges are part of the modern world already, and yeah, I would be happy to hear some thoughts about this question. It really stays in my mind, the difference that we have seen between how US is handling human capital and how Europe is handling human capital, and really any thought on that I think will bring value to the attendees to this panel.
I can maybe something.
Sure.
So I didn't directly say kind of what I do. So I do recruitment in particular in the medical technology industry. We work globally, so we've really seen kind of like the difference. And speaking to clients and some of the candidates, we've really seen in each country, even in Europe, the different countries, how they have handled it. But what we have definitely seen has been, if we look at some of our clients, in Europe, I think it was a lot quicker to really slow things down, to really shut things down. We had some countries in France, France was an example, the UK was also another one, and Spain, where, people were really advised strongly to work from home. And we saw employers having to, scrambled, as Virginia said, scrambled to make it possible to have this digital remote working. But equally, at the same time, whilst that was going on, in Switzerland, for example, with some of the clients that we were working with there was restrictions, but it was very, very, very soft, and people were really given the choice as to whether they wanted to go to work or work from home. And that we had hiring managers that we were talking to that were still going in the office whilst France was on proper lockdown. And at the same time, whilst that was going on, we were dealing with clients in the US, that one state was locked down, but actually people were traveling interstate between other states, and that was a lot slower to actually take place. So we've really seen a difference, at least from the recruitment side, not only Europe and US, but really individual countries in Europe dealt with it differently as well. That's what I saw.
Yeah, very interesting. I think we have Plamen back on board.
That's right, yeah. Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries. Let's give it a second try.
Yeah, sure. Let me see now. Share, yeah. Okay. All right. I hope you can see it now.
Yes.
All right, everyone. First of all, it's a great pleasure to join you. If you don't mind, I'll remain in audio mode because I prefer the focus to be on my presentation. And secondly, I'm using an external monitor for the sake of this presentation. So my name is Plamen, and for the next 10 to 15 minutes, probably I'll be sharing with you my ideas and my views on the future of work and how the COVID-19 pandemic has changed it forever. Before we start, just a quick note. Although I'm representing a Salesforce development partner here in Bulgaria, this is not going to be a corporate pitch presentation. Everything we say about the brand name Salesforce would be just a representation of my own views and ideas, and just an example of the application that I'm going to be telling you more about, which is work.com. So this presentation is coming in 3 parts. The first is the pandemic-driven digital future. The second is Salesforce and work.com. And we will wrap things up with a couple of suggestions on how we can have healthier lives in this new digital realm. So let's start with the question, shall we? Do you think that the term digital transformation is still valid, or rather we should be talking about digital revolution? Because in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic, everything is changing, and I looked it up in the dictionary, and revolution is the forceful overthrow of something. And I think this is exactly what we're seeing currently in business. Most companies, they're faced with this challenge to overthrow the old ways of doing things. And they're also faced with this challenge of this ever increasing gap between old businesses like traditional businesses and businesses that are born digital. So what should companies do in order to close that gap? First of all, is the question of how companies can allow their people to. Sorry, can you hear me well? Just because I got some notice here on my screen.
No, we are very good. You can go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So the question of how companies can allow their people to have a versatile and agile atmosphere and environment for work. So it's not just the office anymore. Companies should be able to allow their people to work from anywhere, basically. And then it comes the question of what companies and businesses can do to empower their people to reduce stress by allowing technology to take over things like work optimization, process automation, and just help their employees be happy and not just overwhelmed by work that can be done by machines and computers. And finally, is the ultimate question of why people work and why people work for us as a company. I think this is a great question that business should and companies should ask when they evaluate the future in this new digital realm, because everything boils down to why we do certain things. And if businesses invest time and effort to elevate the purpose of why we do certain things and what are our gifts, what people are really good at, I think this is a great way to boost employees' potential and not just use people like some machines to do admin work that is, again, very easily automated nowadays. And there is just no need for people to do boring, dull, and mundane things anymore. Of course, it's easier said than done. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of investment as well to make the turn. But I personally think that this COVID-19 pandemic came in the right time for us to reconsider if the direction we've been following is the right one for us. So I truly think that business owners should just take the time now and think what is the most efficient way to go on from here. And it's not always the status quo. So, but what we have learned from this pandemic? First of all, we have learned that remote work works. It is absolutely possible, and there is, frankly, there is nothing wrong with it. Secondly, we've learned that data is hugely important. Data is the new oil, as they say. And if we're able to gather insights from data and build new knowledge, new insights of our organization, it is absolutely invaluable experience. And finally, work could be fun, and work should be fun, because most processes nowadays, they're easily optimized and automated. So there is no reason for us to do it like we used to do it like 10 years ago. Of course, to help us, we've got the cloud. Probably you've heard quite a lot about the cloud, but it is an absolutely agile solution that offers us help to work from anywhere, to communicate without any problems, to share and connect to the data sources that we need to connect to from any point in the world. And as an example of such a scalable and agile solution, we have Work.com, which is a product from Salesforce. It was created back in 2015, and it came out as a solution for the HR departments. But since the COVID outbursts, Salesforce decided to revamp it a bit, to redesign it, and it only took them a month or so to come up with a COVID response product. Basically, Work.com is a guide. It's a guide for businesses how to reopen safely after this lockdown is over, because this is a huge problem. It's a huge challenge for most businesses, I'm sure you know. And if it's easier to write an app or something like that for a company of 5 or 50, it sure is a huge challenge to manage a company of 10,000 people or more. So the cloud is probably the only solution for a challenge like that. So Work.com offers a employee wellness assessment. It offers different apps for contract tracing, shift scheduling, and it's also applicable for schools, which is like the hot topic of the day. And basically, what it does is offer any business actually a way to trace the health status of people and employees. And as you know, this health status is something that it's absolutely dynamic, and we need a way to monitor and control. So in order to not allow for people who have any chances to be like sick to work with people who are completely healthy. So in order to eliminate this risk, Salesforce has come up with a solution like Work.com that is really something that absolutely clever. So how can we beat COVID-19 through data? As stated before in the presentations, I believe that science, technology, data can help us beat COVID-19 and any coming pandemics in the future, because this combination was for a very sweet awareness, allow us to undergo different A/B testings of possible solutions and achieve a very effective and efficient people management in the case of Work.com. But even as a general rule, data is always a great solution, as well as all the rest we can do with a cloud platform. For example, like process optimization, workflow automation, data analytics, different validations and auto assignments. But finally, and it always everything boils down to having a single source of truth, because when you're using different information silos and different sources like business cards, spreadsheets, email, sticky notes, you name them, it's just stress is going up, and sometimes you don't know what's going on. And having this single source of truth on the cloud, it really gives you an edge. And finally, of course, here are just a couple of tips for a healthy digital future. First of all, we need to stop the rat race with the machines. There is just no point in that. And thus, we can reduce stress dramatically, because machines and computers, they were designed, they were developed to do such kinds of work, like calculations, repetitive tasks, and there is just no point to compete with the machines. But nevertheless, we do that. And I don't think this is a wise idea. As human beings, we should explore ways to be creative. We should explore ways to develop ourselves, to aspire to achieve, and to inspire others to pursue their dreams and visions. And finally, just think, because as I said, I believe as human beings, this is what we were born to do, and create a better world for everyone. So this is how I envision the future. Thank you everyone for your attention. If you have any questions, I'll be very glad to attempt to answer those.
Thank you, Plamen. Very interesting presentation, really very interesting point of view. Since we have gone a bit over time, I will give you the floor to all of you for last sentence and maybe a conclusion of based on what we have exchanged as thoughts. So please go ahead and share your final thoughts.
Well, just to keep it really quick, personally, I really enjoyed this panel. It was very insightful for me to, and thank you, ladies, for this your wonderful presentations. It was very nice, and I think that we need to raise those questions often in the future, because this is how we will reach new truths and discover new knowledge. And personally, it was a very enriching experience for me, and I'm really deeply grateful for the chance to contribute as well.
Indeed, thank you too. Annie Maria, final thoughts.
We are also delighted to participate in this panel. We welcome the conversation both online and offline. Perhaps as a final thought, we see it as tremendously important to come together, both humans and technology, and to build a better future.
And I think this restart to humanity is for good.
Yes, thank you. I completely agree. Gina, thank you for coming over from the other side of the world.
Thank you really for having me. I hope that I contributed with some knowledge and ideas and a different perspective. And I think that crossing industries, crossing disciplines, it's very important. And merging psychology with technology also, it's very important, especially in the challenges we all face as humans and parts of different institutions and organizations. My final thing, it's good luck to everybody, stay healthy, and let's change and think at the same time.
Great, thank you very much. It was an amazing panel full of insights. And actually, having in mind that this is the last panel for the day, I will take the opportunity to thank to all the speakers that have gone through the day. And this is actually the third edition of the Biotech Atelier. This is the European Biotechnology Conference, bringing together scientists, business leaders, international experts, and influential think tanks to connect, exchange, generate new ideas for innovation, entrepreneurship, and business development in the field of biotechnology, healthcare, life sciences, pharma, and information, and computer technologies. So also please save the date. There will be Biotech Atelier 2021. We will grow in a 3-day event, and it will be held on the 29th and 30th of September and 1st of October 2021. We hope to have you offline in 2021, but let's see. And this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a new ideas, cooperation, and partnerships in the field of innovation and biotechnologies. So we really hope that everybody attending and listening to the panels today have gained knowledge, and that we will stay in touch and we will continue to develop. Thank you, really. It was amazing to moderate this panel, and looking forward to stay in touch and exchange ideas.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.